I need to be honest with you. I've been prepping for over a decade now, and I've watched countless people waste money on expensive gear and fancy freeze-dried meals while completely ignoring the dirt-cheap staples that actually matter. Hit that subscribe button right now because what I'm about to share could save you thousands of dollars and might actually keep you alive when things go sideways. These 13 items are so affordable and overlooked that during the last major shortage, I walked into stores and found them fully stocked while everything else was gone. Number 9 is going to make you angry when you realize how much money you've wasted on alternatives. And number 12 has been used by militaries for over a century, costs less than $1 per pound, and nobody ever talks about it. Let's get into it. Look, grocery prices are rising faster than most people can keep up with. I've done the math for you. I put together a free emergency pantry blueprint that lists the exact 15 items you can get at Aldi, Walmart, or Costco today to feed your family for 2 weeks. It's 28,000 calories for less than the cost of a takeout pizza. You can grab that shopping list for free at the link in the description so you can stop worrying and start prepping. Staple number 1 is white vinegar. This is the most underrated prep item sitting in your pantry right now. I'm talking about regular distilled white vinegar, not the fancy apple cider stuff. A gallon costs about $3 and lasts literally forever. Unopened, it never goes bad. Ever. But here's what makes this absolutely critical. Vinegar is a food preservative, a cleaning agent, a disinfectant, and a cooking ingredient all in one. Last summer, I bought 50 pounds of cucumbers when they were dirt cheap at the farmer's market. My neighbor thought I was crazy, but I turned them into pickles using just vinegar, water, salt, and some spices. Those jars are still sitting in my basement, perfectly preserved, and I spent maybe $20 total. Compare that to buying canned vegetables at $2 per can. During a long-term crisis, fresh food disappears immediately. But if you've got vinegar, you can preserve anything. Cabbage becomes sauerkraut. Onions can be pickled. Even eggs can be preserved in vinegar solutions for months without refrigeration. Here's something most preppers miss entirely. Vinegar is medicine. Got a sore throat? Gargle with diluted vinegar. Upset stomach? A tablespoon in water helps digestion. Fungal infections? Vinegar kills them. I keep 15 gallons stored in my basement. Cost me $45. That's 15 gallons of preservation power, cleaning supplies, and medical backup that will outlive me. And when everyone else is fighting over bleach and expensive cleaners, I'm sitting pretty with something that does it all for pennies. Staple number 2 is plain table salt. I know you're thinking that's too obvious, but hear me out because most preppers get this completely wrong. Not iodized salt, not sea salt, just basic non-iodized table salt in bulk. A 25-pound bag costs about $8 at restaurant supply stores. That's $8 for something humans literally cannot survive without. Your body needs sodium to function. Without it, your muscles stop working, your brain shuts down, and you die. It's that simple. But here's where this gets interesting. Salt is the original food preservation method. Before refrigeration, before canning, there was salt. You can preserve meat for years using just salt. I tested this myself with a process called salt curing. Took a pork belly, covered it completely in salt, left it in my basement for 3 weeks. The result was basically homemade bacon that needs 0 refrigeration and lasts indefinitely. Every survival expert talks about protein, but nobody talks about how to keep that protein from rotting. Salt is the answer. Beyond preservation, You need it for making every single meal palatable. Try eating plain rice for a week without salt. You'll understand real fast why ancient armies were paid in salt. That's where the word salary comes from. I store salt in 5-gallon buckets with tight lids. Moisture is the only enemy. Keep it dry and it lasts forever. I've got 100 pounds stored. Cost me less than $40 total. That's enough to preserve hundreds of pounds of meat, seasoned food for years, and even use for bartering. When things collapse, salt becomes currency again. Staple number 3 is baking soda. This is another one of those items that costs almost nothing but does everything. A 1-pound box is $1. But let me tell you what happened last year that made me realize how critical this is. I was camping with my brother-in-law, testing our bug-out gear. On day 3, he got horrible heartburn from eating too many dehydrated meals. He was in serious pain, couldn't sleep, and we were 2 days from the nearest store. I mixed a teaspoon of baking soda in water and gave it to him. Relief in 5 minutes. Baking soda is a natural antacid, but that's just the beginning. You can brush your teeth with it, preventing infections that could kill you when dentists aren't available. You can use it as deodorant. You can clean with it. And here's the big one. Baking soda is a fire suppressant. Grease fire in your survival kitchen. Baking soda puts it out instantly. Water makes grease fires worse, but every prepper seems to forget this. For cooking, it's essential. Making bread without baking soda. Good luck. It's the leavening agent that makes food rise and become edible instead of dense bricks. I keep 25 pounds stored in airtight containers. Cost me $25. That's years of toothpaste, antacid, cleaning supplies, and fire safety for the price of one fancy freeze-dried meal. The shelf life is indefinite if you keep moisture out. This is one of those items that proves you don't need expensive solutions. You need smart solutions. Staple number 4 is popcorn kernels. Stay with me here because this sounds crazy until you understand the math. Unpopped popcorn kernels cost about $2 per pound. 1 pound makes roughly 30 cups of popped popcorn. That's 15 servings of filling, whole grain food for $2. Show me another prep food with that value. But here's what makes this genius. Popcorn is a whole grain that lasts 10 to 15 years when stored properly. It's not junk food, it's actual nutrition. 1 cup of popped corn has fiber, vitamins, and minerals. During the Depression, popcorn sales actually increased because it was one of the few affordable foods families could still buy. Last winter, during a power outage, my kids were getting restless and hungry. I popped corn over my camp stove, added some salt and a tiny bit of ghee, and suddenly we had a morale booster that felt like a treat. In a crisis, psychological comfort matters enormously. Popcorn provides that without breaking your budget. Here's the storage key. Keep kernels in airtight containers in a cool, dry place. They need to maintain some moisture inside to pop properly, so don't use oxygen absorbers with popcorn. I keep 20 pounds stored. That's 600 cups of popped corn, enough to feed my family for months if needed, and it cost me $40. You can pop it over any heat source, camp stove, fire, even in a pan on a grill. No special equipment needed. While other preppers are spending $200 on freeze-dried snacks, I've got real food that my kids actually enjoy. Staple number 5 is dried lentils. Most preppers stock beans, and that's fine, but they're completely sleeping on lentils. Here's why lentils are superior. Beans take hours to cook and require soaking overnight. Lentils cook in 20 minutes with zero soaking. In a fuel-scarce situation, that difference is massive. 1 pound of dried lentils costs about $1.50 and provides roughly 11 servings of high-protein food. Lentils pack 18 grams of protein per cup when cooked. That's nearly as much as meat. Plus, they're loaded with iron, which prevents anemia when your diet gets limited. I learned this from a guy who spent 2 years doing disaster relief in conflict zones. He told me lentils were the go-to food because they're fast, nutritious, and almost never cause digestive issues like beans do. When you're under stress, the last thing you need is stomach problems from food that's hard to digest. Lentils are gentle. The shelf life is 10 to 15 years in proper storage. I keep 50 pounds in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers inside food-grade buckets. Cost me about $75. That's 550 servings of complete nutrition. You can make lentil soup, mix them with rice for complete protein, or even sprout them for fresh greens in winter. And here's something wild. Lentils have been found in 4,000-year-old Egyptian tombs, still intact. This is ancient survival food that modern preppers ignore because it's not sexy or high-tech. Staple number 6 is peanut butter powder. This one changed my entire approach to storing fats and proteins. Regular peanut butter goes rancid within months after opening because of the oil content. But peanut butter powder, which is basically peanuts with most of the oil removed, lasts years. A 1-pound container costs about $8 and reconstitutes into roughly 3 pounds of peanut butter. Just add water. Here's why this matters. Protein and calories in a survival situation are critical, and peanut butter powder delivers both in a shelf-stable package. 2 tablespoons give you 6 grams of protein, but here's the versatility that sold me. You don't have to reconstitute it. You can add it directly to oatmeal, mix it into smoothies if you've got stored milk powder, or even eat it straight for quick energy. I did a 3-day hiking test last fall, carrying only lightweight preps. Peanut butter powder became my primary calorie source. I mixed it with water for sandwiches, stirred it into my rice for flavor and protein, and even ate it by the spoonful when I needed fast fuel. The shelf life is 3 to 5 years, longer if you store it with oxygen absorbers. I keep 10 pounds in mason jars in my pantry. That's the equivalent of 30 pounds of regular peanut butter, taking up a third of the space and lasting years longer. And while everyone else is storing jars of peanut butter that will separate and go bad, I've got concentrated protein that weighs almost nothing and packs maximum nutrition. Staple number 7 is bouillon powder. I know I'm going to catch heat for this, but bouillon powder is smarter than bouillon cubes. For one reason: concentration. Bouillon powder is more compact, dissolves faster, and you can control the exact amount of flavor you're adding. A 1-pound container costs about $6 and makes roughly 50 quarts of broth. That's 12 cents per quart. Compare that to canned broth at $3 per quart. Here's the reality of eating stored food. It's boring. Rice and beans every single day will destroy your morale faster than anything. But add bouillon powder, and suddenly that plain rice tastes like something you'd actually want to eat. I keep chicken, beef, and vegetable flavors. Mixing them up prevents food fatigue. Last year, during a winter storm that knocked out power for a week, I used bouillon powder in everything. Rice cooked in chicken bouillon. Lentils cooked in vegetable bouillon. Even plain pasta became edible with beef bouillon mixed in. My kids didn't complain once because the food actually tasted good. The sodium content is high, which some people criticize, but in a survival situation, you need that sodium. You're probably sweating more, working harder, and your body is burning through electrolytes. Bouillon powder replaces them. Storage is simple. Keep it in the original container or transfer to jars if you're worried about moisture. I've got containers that are 3 years old. Still perfect. This is one of those items nobody fights over during shortages because it seems insignificant, but it's actually one of the most important morale boosters in your entire stockpile. Staple number 8 is cornmeal. This is old school survival food that modern preppers have completely forgotten. A 5-pound bag costs about $4. Cornmeal lasts 1 to 2 years at room temperature, but stored in mylar with oxygen absorbers, it lasts 10 years or more. Here's why this matters. Cornmeal is incredibly versatile and calorie dense. You can make cornbread, tortillas, polenta, mush, or use it as breading. 1 cup of cornmeal has about 440 calories. When you're rationing food, those calories become precious. I grew up in the South, and my grandmother survived the Depression on cornbread and beans. That was it. She lived to 94, sharp as a tack until the end. There's a reason cornmeal was a staple. It works. Here's my go-to Depression-era recipe that saved my family's sanity during a 2-week power outage. Mix cornmeal with water and a pinch of salt. Pour it into a greased pan and cook it over any heat source. You've got bread. Add a can of corn or some dried onions if you have them, and it becomes a meal. The beauty is that you need almost no other ingredients. No yeast, no rising time, no special skills. Just mix and cook. I keep 30 pounds stored in my basement. That's roughly 150 meals for my family, and it cost me $24 total. Compare that to bread mixes at $5 per box that make maybe 6 loaves. The math isn't even close. Staple number 9 is powdered bouillon base. Wait, didn't I already mention bouillon? No, this is different. I'm talking about the professional grade bouillon base that restaurants use. It comes in giant jars and costs about $15 for 2 pounds, but it's concentrated like crazy. 1 teaspoon makes a cup of rich restaurant quality broth. This isn't something you'll find at regular grocery stores. You've got to hit restaurant supply stores or order online. Here's why this is next level. The flavor is incomparably better than regular bouillon. It contains actual meat extracts and concentrated vegetables, and a single jar lasts forever in the fridge. But if you lose power, it's fine at room temperature for weeks. I discovered this when I was working in a commercial kitchen years ago. The chef showed me that literally every soup, sauce, and gravy started with this stuff. Professional cooks don't use canned broth. They use bouillon base because it's cheaper and better. In a survival situation, adding just a tiny amount to your stored foods transforms them completely. I made rice using a 1/4 teaspoon of this stuff, and my wife thought I'd somehow gotten fresh chicken to cook with. That's the power of concentrated, professional-grade flavoring. I keep 3 jars, chicken, beef, and vegetable. Cost me $45 total, but it's probably 5 years worth of flavor for my entire stockpile. Staple number 10 is oats, not the fancy steel-cut kind, just regular old-fashioned rolled oats. A 5-pound container costs about $4. When stored in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers, oats last 10 to 30 years. That's not a typo, 30 years. Oats are one of the most shelf-stable whole grains you can store, but here's what makes them perfect for prepping. They require minimal cooking. You can eat them cold if you have to, just soaked in water overnight. In a fuel-scarce situation, this is huge. 1 cup of dry oats provides 300 calories, 10 grams of protein, and tons of fiber. That fiber keeps your digestive system working when you're eating a limited diet. I've tested this personally during camping trips. Oats for breakfast kept me full until dinner. The slow digesting carbs provide steady energy instead of the spike and crash you get from sugar. Beyond breakfast, oats are incredibly versatile. You can grind them into flour for baking. You can make oat milk by blending them with water. You can even use them to make a soothing paste for skin irritation or poison ivy. I keep 50 pounds stored. That's about 800 servings, and it cost me $40. Show me another prep food with that kind of value. During shortages, oats are always available because everyone's focused on rice and beans. Staple number 11 is canned tomato paste. This is one of those items that costs 80 cents per can and gets completely overlooked. But let me tell you why I keep 100 cans of this stuff. Tomato paste is concentrated nutrition and flavor in a tiny package. 1 small can is the equivalent of about 6 fresh tomatoes, cooked down and concentrated. The vitamin C content is high, which prevents scurvy during long-term survival situations. That's not some theoretical concern. Scurvy killed more sailors throughout history than battles did. Beyond nutrition, tomato paste is a flavor base for dozens of meals. Add it to rice, and you've got Spanish rice. Mix it with lentils, and you've got a stew. Stir it into pasta, and you've got marinara sauce. One can transform an entire meal. The shelf life is 2 to 5 years, but I've used cans that were 7 years old with 0 issues. The acidity of tomatoes acts as a natural preservative. Here's my storage hack. Keep them in a cool, dark place and rotate them into your regular cooking. I use 1 can per week in normal times, so my stock naturally rotates. Cost me about $80 for 100 cans, but that's 100 meals elevated from boring to actually enjoyable. In a crisis, flavor is morale, and morale keeps you functional. Staple number 12 is canning salt. This is different from regular table salt. Canning salt is pure sodium chloride with no additives, no iodine, and no anti-caking agents. Those additives in regular salt can cloud your preserved foods and sometimes affect the preservation process. A 3-pound box costs about $4. Here's why this matters. If you're serious about long-term survival, you need to preserve fresh food when it's available. During growing season, vegetables are cheap and abundant, but if you can't preserve them, you're wasting that opportunity. Canning salt is specifically designed for pickling and preserving. It dissolves completely and doesn't interfere with fermentation if you're making sauerkraut or kimchi. I use it for making pickles, preserving eggs in water glass solution, and curing meat. Last fall, I bought 30 pounds of green beans when they were 50 cents per pound. I pressure canned them using canning salt and water. Those jars are still perfect, sitting in my basement. I've got 2 years worth of green beans for about $20 total. Beyond food preservation, canning salt is pure, which means it's better for medical uses. You can make saline solution for wound cleaning. You can use it for oral rehydration therapy if someone has severe dehydration. I keep 15 pounds stored. It lasts indefinitely if kept dry. This is one of those items that gives you skills and options beyond just eating stored food. You become a producer, not just a consumer. Staple number 13 is unflavored gelatin. This is the sleeper prep item that nobody talks about. A 1-pound bag costs about $12 and contains enough gelatin for roughly 100 uses. Gelatin is pure protein derived from collagen. 1 tablespoon provides 6 grams of protein. But here's what makes this critical for preppers. Gelatin supports joint health, gut health, and skin health. When you're eating a limited diet and doing hard physical work, your joints take a beating. Gelatin helps repair that damage. Beyond health, gelatin is a food extender. You can use it to make broths more filling and nutritious. You can make simple desserts with just gelatin, water, and a bit of sugar or fruit. In a morale crisis, having something that resembles a treat is psychologically important. I tested this during a weekend bug-out drill. I made gelatin using just powder, water, and some stored lemon juice. My kids were thrilled to have something different from the usual survival food. It felt like normal life for a moment. Storage is simple. Keep it in the original packaging or transfer to airtight containers. It lasts indefinitely if kept dry. I keep 3 pounds stored. That's 300 uses for $36, providing supplemental protein and comfort food options for years. These are 13 items that form the bedrock of a smart, affordable, and sustainable survival stockpile. You've heard about the power of vinegar as a multi-purpose cleaner and preservative, the fundamental necessity of plain salt for human function and preservation, the versatility of baking soda as an antacid and fire suppressant, the unbeatable caloric value of popcorn kernels, the fast-cooking protein punch of dried lentils, the shelf-stable fat and protein from peanut butter powder, the essential morale-boosting flavor of bouillon, the historical calorie density of cornmeal, the professional-grade flavor of concentrated bouillon base, the incredible longevity of rolled oats, the scurvy-preventing, flavor-packed punch of canned tomato paste, the necessity of pure canning salt for long-term preservation projects, and the joint-supporting, morale-boosting power of unflavored gelatin. These weren't random suggestions. They are the result of decades spent watching the system fail and observing what real people turn to when the shelves are bare. Every single one of these items shares a few critical characteristics that make them superior to the flashy, expensive gear the prepper industry pushes. They are multifunctional, incredibly cheap, possess a shelf life measured in years or decades, and most importantly, they are completely overlooked during times of panic. Think back to the last major disruption. People swarmed the aisles, grabbing the obvious: water, toilet paper, canned beans, rice. But who was fighting over a 25-pound bag of table salt or a 5-pound bag of cornmeal? Nobody. That's the secret. You walked in and found them fully stocked. The true value of this list isn't just the low cost, it's the strategic advantage it gives you by focusing on staples that aren't on everyone else's radar. You are now equipped with the knowledge to create a stockpile that can feed, clean, preserve, and heal your family for years, spending less than you would on 1 week's worth of pre-packaged meals. This knowledge shifts you from being a consumer dependent on the next product launch to becoming a self-reliant producer capable of creating your own food security. When the power goes out, when the supply chains choke, and when the panic buying strips the stores clean, your basement won't just be full of food. It will be full of solutions. Solutions for preserving the fresh food you grow or acquire, solutions for keeping your family healthy and comfortable, and solutions for turning bland survival rations into something that keeps the mental game strong. You've crossed the line from a novice prepper concerned only with calories to an expert strategist who understands that things like flavor, morale, preservation, and versatile utility are the real keys to long-term survival. The question now is, what happens when you've mastered the staples? What's the next logical step in protecting your investment? It's not buying more stuff. It's stopping the bleeding, identifying the liabilities, and cutting out the dead weight in your current preparedness plan.
Because for every smart item on this list, there are 10 items that preppers religiously stock up on that are nothing more than a giant waste of money, time, and precious storage space. Look, here's what I want you to understand. These 13 items cost less combined than a single case of freeze-dried meals, but they'll outlast, out-nutrition, and outperform almost anything else you can store. The reason nobody talks about this stuff is because there's no profit in it for the big prepper companies. They want you buying expensive solutions to simple problems.
But the smartest preppers have always known that survival isn't about gear. It's about knowledge and having the right staples stored properly. If this changed how you think about prepping, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me which of these 13 items you're stocking up on first. Subscribe, because next week I'm revealing the 7 foods that preppers waste money on that are completely worthless in a real emergency. You definitely don't want to miss that one. Now get out there and start building a stockpile that actually makes sense.